I cannot believe this is happening to me. My wife, who is 48 and I have been married for 14 years, yet she now feels like a stranger to me. She received a promotion a few years ago and began making more money, and I've noticed she's been distant ever since. But when the quarantine arrived, she underwent a rapid shift. It was like a switch flicked, and she informed me she couldn't take being stuck at home. This lockout pushed us to confront our marriage's difficulties, which we had previously ignored. At first, we were really compatible, but now it seems like we have nothing in common. I know we're not the only couple battling to balance job, kids, and life, but knowing doesn't make things any easier. Before the epidemic, we battled over everything, and she always made it a huge issue. She proposed marriage counseling, and I grudgingly accepted, expecting to return to the way things had been. However, finding a counselor during the lockdown proved hard, so I recommended that we try talking things out ourselves. I am not going to lie. It's been tough. Our troubles prompted me to shut down, so we began sleeping in different rooms. We still have moments of intimacy, but not enough. She's a wonderful mother to our kids. But how about us? I am determined to repair this no matter what it takes. I want to experience the same spark we had when we first got married. Detective Job in June. I reached a breaking point. I had no idea why these tremendous changes were taking place, and it broke my heart to witness my family fall apart. Even though my children are little, they can sense that something is wrong, and it is hurting their mood. I believed my instincts that something else was going on, something worse than our already failed marriage. That's when I decided to conduct some investigation on my own. My wife never lets go of her phone, keeping it close and hidden from my eyes. She's always on it, ignoring me and the television, waiting for the next text to arrive. She appears to be in a trance, her sole focus being on the phone. She even leaves the house, saying she is bored. But I suspect she'll meet someone. I've been on this forum long enough to understand the symptoms of cheating, and being stuck at home has revealed how inexperienced I've been. I sense something isn't right, but I want to be certain. That's why I got a voice-activated recorder from Amazon and installed it in her car while she was sleeping. After 2 days of restless waiting, I eventually retrieved the voice-activated recorder from my wife's car and listened to the tape. My heart fell. My wife was the only one speaking, and she was plainly speaking to a man. They were talking about work, but also how much they missed each other and how bored she was with our marriage. I could hear the enthusiasm in her voice as she discussed meeting up with him. My greatest worries have been fulfilled. My wife was having an affair as I listened. I heard they were planning to meet at a hotel parking lot near our house. When she arrived at the meeting place, I could hear her car door close as she exited. My thoughts raced. Should I confront her now? Should I wait to obtain more evidence? It was the most difficult thing I have ever done. Sitting there, pretending everything was okay as my heart splintered into a million pieces, I couldn't handle the thought of my wife cheating on me. I had to act normal, even though my mind was racing and my stomach was knotted. Some may ask why I don't address her immediately, but I know her too well. She is not the sort to come clean easy, and she is quite clever. She would reject everything, escalating the conflict in the absence of substantial evidence. It would be tough to get the closure I desired. This is why I took issues into my own hands. In addition to the voice-activated recorder, I mounted a GPS tracker in her vehicle. With this tracker, I could track her every move using my phone. I knew it was excessive, but I wanted to know the truth. And if my suspicions proved correct, I needed to be ready for what was coming. 2 weeks later, in mid-June, COVID restrictions were lifted in my area, and my wife and I began returning to work. We ate dinner and watched TV one evening after returning from work. She was messaging on her phone as usual when she suddenly announced that she was going for a late-night journey to clear her mind. When she claimed I had been waiting for this moment for the previous 2 weeks, I felt a mix of rage and relief because catching her red-handed had been on my mind continuously. I couldn't even focus at work because of it. I couldn't help but wonder how things had become so horrible in our marriage. Was it because she was earning more now? I knew I shouldn't blame myself for her infidelity, but I couldn't stop feeling that way. As soon as I heard her car depart the driveway, I turned off the television. I put the kids in bed. My wife, whom I've been married to for 15 years, was being intimate with a stranger in a rundown motel parking lot, like some kind of cheap 403. The guy drove away as quickly as he could, leaving me feeling as if I had failed in my quest to catch them in the act. I wanted to catch them red-handed with their clothes off, but at the very least, she cannot deny her actions. A long night. I stayed up all night waiting for her to come home. It wasn't until 5 a.m. she eventually walked through the door. As soon as I saw her, I knew something was wrong. She appeared absolutely exhausted, as if she had just been through a struggle. Her body language was filled with guilt and shame, and she couldn't even look me in the eyes. The first thing she said was that she could explain everything, and that it was not as it appeared. But I already knew she'd met up with this guy on several times. She admitted to knowing him for about 6 months, but refused to tell me who he was or whether she worked with him. She explained that they were both having marital troubles and feeling lonely, so they turned to one other for comfort. They only got close once, and that's when I caught them. She grew defensive, claiming that our marriage was on the rocks and she was stressed. She didn't want to break up, but she needed some space to think things out. She was unhappy that I had overheard her talk and followed her, and she even went so far as to declare that she will continue to meet this person because she feels supported by him, especially given how awful things have been between us. I was devastated. It felt as if my entire universe had collapsed around me. How could she do this to me after so many years together? The pain was almost excruciating, and I wasn't sure how I'd get through it. I knew it was over between us. I'd made up my mind to tell her I wanted a divorce. I didn't expect her to be startled, and I definitely didn't expect her to feel bad about what she had done. She had already told me that she felt justified in cheating, that our marriage had been loveless, and that she needed to find happiness somewhere else. I knew she would most certainly move on with her affair partner, and I had accepted it. It hurt, of course, but I knew it was for the better. I couldn't keep living in a loveless marriage, and I couldn't make her stay with me if her heart wasn't in it. Despite the fact that I want to shout at her for being such a sleazy tramp, I want to give her the opportunity to blabber on, even though I know she'll be spewing nothing but lies. It's as if a small part of me is hoping she'll say something that will convince me to stay and work things out. I still love her. Kinda. Just thinking about it makes my heart throb even more than eating jalapenos for breakfast. I lay down the law with my wife, telling her that if she wants to try marriage counseling, she must disclose everything about the affair. I'd like to know exactly when it started, and she must terminate all ties with her affair partner. She also needs to quit her work since I do not want her near him. But she's not making things easy for me. She claims she has already told me everything, but I don't buy it. She claims she has been ignoring his calls, but I'm not so sure. They work together, and she holds a high position in the company, so she can't just resign. She suggests she be transferred to another department, but I'm not convinced that's sufficient. I want her to force him to transfer or leave the company completely. If she can't do that, we might as well start now. I'm so furious and wounded by everything, and all I want is for her to show that she's prepared to do whatever it takes to restore our marriage. New, compromising substance. It was a wonderful day for me since I finally learned who the other guy was. I left work early and went to my wife's office to get a peek of the car. He drives. I discovered it and waited for him to finish his task before driving away. I followed him for 25 miles until he parked into his driveway, where I obtained his entire contact information and even saw his image online. It turns out he is married with 3 children, and I also have his wife's information. After a few days of thinking about it, I called his wife and told her everything. She was obviously outraged and wanted to confront her husband right away, but I recommended her to think things through first. She explained that they had a summer vacation planned with their extended family, so the timing was not great for a confrontation. It's been a few days, and I'm not sure if she has faced him yet. She stated that they have a summer vacation scheduled for next week with extended families and children, so they were unsure about the timing of the confrontation. So following my brief conversation with my unfaithful wife, she agreed to provide me a written account of when the affair began. Switch teams at work in 3 weeks to avoid her little fling buddy and cut off any communication with him. Now I know some of you are all, college, yeah, bust those cheaters, but honestly, what's in it for me? I make good dough, but she still brings home the bacon. And if we split up now, I will not have to pay any child support or alimony. The only thing that creeps me out is the prospect of a custody struggle. Don't get me wrong. I'm still considering ending this marriage. I simply consented to the meeting to appear concerned, and to give myself some time to consult with a lawyer and weigh my options. So I read the timeline my wife handed me, and it felt like a stab in the heart. It was evident that she was falling over heels for her fling partner, despite her repeated apologies and claims to want to work on our marriage. But let's face it, the ship has sailed. If I agree to go to couples counseling, I'm essentially telling her that I'm fine with her straying. I suppose her affair partner prefers to stay with his own wife, and she's just using me as a fallback. This morning, I visited 3 lawyers downtown to choose the best one for me. I ended up with a tough female lawyer who heard my account and reviewed the documented timeline. She said it was wise of me to have that proof, and even if it is not totally accurate, it could still help my case if things become nasty in court. She also informed me that in my state, I had 3 months from the moment I discovered the adultery before filing for divorce. Otherwise, it will appear like I am all right with it. I'm hoping this comes in handy throughout the custody struggle. We served her with divorce papers. Last night, I informed my cheating wife that I am filing for divorce. I was going to serve her papers at work, but I wanted to talk to her like an adult first. I was not prepared for her reaction. She said I deceived her with the letter, making her believe we were going to fix things. I fired back, reminding her that she created her bed by spreading her legs like a cheap tramp in a parking lot. It escalated into a screaming match, with both of us shrieking at the top of our lungs. She began weeping and pleading for forgiveness, saying, "I love you." I despise her for making me feel this way and for destroying my family, but deep down, I knew I had to do what was best for myself. I met with my lawyers and then went to Kinko's to get the legal documents printed. When my wandering wife returned home, I had the paperwork ready for her to sign. She was astonished and attempted to persuade me that we could work things out. But I did not fall for it. I reminded her that she had been lying to me about her affair for 2 years, and I couldn't trust her again. I told her I wanted her to sign the paperwork for the sake of our children, but she refused and demanded to talk with her lawyer first. She even had the audacity to imply that she did not want to be with her affair partner and wanted me back. Yes, right. She had an opportunity and blew it. She can continue to scream and beg, but I am done with her. As I moved away, she abruptly changed her tone from crying and begging to an angry yell, shouting, "Keep walking away like a coward! I won't sign anything until I speak with my lawyer." One day she signed the documents, most likely after consulting with her own lawyer. Despite the divorce procedures, she continues to conduct her everyday responsibilities such as cooking, cleaning, and caring for the children. She's probably attempting to prove that she can handle everything on her own, but we all know she can't resist my charming nature as one of the benefits of being married to me. I opened a can of worms and received some tasty news today. The other cheated-on husband called me unexpectedly. I'm not sure how she acquired my digits. Perhaps I slipped it when I marched into her office to reveal my unfaithful wife and her cheating husband. She was pretty quiet on the phone, urging we meet together for lunch at some cafe tomorrow. But get this. I'm also set to meet her this afternoon. I'm feeling uneasy and on edge. Who knows what she has up her sleeves? The last time we chatted, she was distraught over her husband's adultery. She's a hard-working business owner. From what I can tell, they appear to be in their late 30s. When I first saw her and her husband, I believed they were well into their 40s. But what do I know, right? Perhaps they just have an extremely difficult existence. So I took a screenshot of my wife's timeline on my phone and mailed it to my lawyer. Then I informed my supervisor that I might not be returning from lunch. Who knows? Maybe I'll never return at all. We plan to meet at a local coffee shop not far from where I work. As I stepped in, the other deceived spouse was already standing up, ready to confront me. I tried to keep it casual by offering my hand for a handshake, but she went for the embrace. It felt strange, but I suppose we had an instant connection because we were in the same boat, betrayed, then left to pick up the pieces. She started by thanking me for informing her of her husband's infidelity. She then broke the news. That would rock my world. Apparently, she had some inside information about my wife that would irritate me. She considered writing me a note, but decided it wouldn't do justice. She also wanted to send a message to my wife, but she was concerned things would get ugly if they met in person. So she urged me to send a message to my wife to keep away from her spouse. It turned out that this betrayed spouse was no moron. Instead of flying off the handle as I did, she followed my suggestion and hired a private investigator to gather proof. She even placed spy software on her husband's phone, allowing her to obtain emails and texts exchanged between him and my wife over the last 4 years. I could not believe it. Meanwhile, my wife guards her phone like it's the Hope Diamond, refusing to allow me even get within arm's length of it. So it turns out that my unfaithful wife and her sidekick have been sneaking about on some hidden app, taking care not to use their work email for any love purposes. However, the private investigator discovered their texts, and it's evident they've been doing the dirty deed on and off for 3 years, with things getting physical. Even though there were no hotel receipts 2 years ago, the detectives discovered that they met at least twice a week at hotels and pubs. And get this, the affair began a few months before she received a promotion, from the messages. My wife was clearly an active participant, whilst the other guy simply went with the flow. I mean, come on. Even a guy like me can see this. I have to say I'm more devastated now than when I found her flirting with the guy in the parking lot. I feel like a complete loser, humiliated and ashamed. I mean, I have loved this woman, and this is how she repays me, by describing me as old, unadventurous, and lacking ambition. They made fun of me behind my back. The meeting with the other deceived spouse took long, probably 3 or 4 hours. She handed me a copy of all the evidence since she had a backup. My wife commented that I had planned to show her the chronology, but it was so obvious that bringing it up would have been embarrassing. After the meeting, she hugged me again and we said our goodbyes. I went to a local tavern to drink away my troubles. Despite the fact that I believed we had a nice relationship, it appears that my ex never loved me. She was hiding a completely different part of herself, which she was showing off to another guy without my knowledge. Meanwhile, I was merely the person she settled for, the one who looked after the kids and kept the house in order while she slept her way up the professional ladder with other guys at work. Another woman whose husband had been cheated on provided me the names of several married bosses. My wife had some hookups. Apparently, she opted to concentrate on one guy, E. But nobody knows how long the previous flings lasted. Justice has been served. I'm feeling deceived and upset right now, and I want to make her feel it as well. This chick is pure wickedness, and she must pay the consequences for her lies. I am not going to confront her like a wimp. I need to show her that I'm not weak, so I'll do something she wouldn't expect, something that will completely stun her. I want to harm her so much that it reveals who she truly is. The truth is, my wife is an expert at putting up a false front for the neighborhood. She's always behaving like the loveliest, most wholesome person to our neighbors, giving them casseroles and such. And at church, she is the go-to usher and role model for Christian wives, always smiling. But deep down, she is quite insecure about her image and what others think of her. She's a type A personality and a natural leader. And to her parents, she is daddy's little angel with a friggin' halo on her head. They believe she can do no wrong, and they have always blamed me for our marital issues. They've got no idea. I spotted her hooking up with some guy in a parking lot. But now it's time to remove the child gloves. It's time to burst their small bubble. I'm going to give all of those juicy text messages and pictures to her parents so they can see their darling daughter for who she truly is. So I went to Kinko's to make copies of the evidence that the other deceived wife had given me. Then I met with my lawyer to examine my options. I showed her the evidence and asked if I could sue my wife's job and the other 2 married managers. My goal is not to win, but to expose the cheaters and spark a controversy that will make big news. My lawyer suggested we may sue for alienation of affection, but that would require my wife's participation, which we both know she will not do. However, my lawyer did write certain legal paperwork that I can use to offer my wife an ultimatum to negotiate a better divorce settlement and move out of my house as soon as possible. This will be her wake-up call. I would threaten her with suing her firm and the bosses with whom she had a tight relationship. I will also notify the local newspapers. I'll also inform the local papers so that it sounds more dramatic. Even if the case is frivolous and is dismissed, the harm will have already been done once the public learns about it, and she will be forced to leave our family home and leave everything to me. And yes, I hired a lawyer to write a formal document to sue her employer and their bosses, just in case. Yesterday, I had to pick up my children from school and drive them to my wife's parents' house. They're charming old people in their 70s, retired and all that jazz. I decided to have a brief conversation with them and show them evidence of their daughter's adultery, including some naughty photos that really pushed the idea home. The poor father was devastated and kept apologizing to me, whereas the mother could not believe her lovely church-going daughter could do such a thing. It was awful to see them discover what their daughter was truly up to. I knew it would hurt them, but when I returned home, my wife was on the phone with her parents, sobbing. But as soon as she spotted me, she hung up and began freaking out, asking all kinds of questions about the evidence I had on her. She was shivering and sweating profusely, as if her entire world was ready to collapse. And you know what? It was amazing seeing her like that. I completely took my wife off guard when I revealed some crucial lawsuit information to her. Her reaction was priceless. She appeared to be about to vomit and even yanked on her hair as if she were attempting to rip it out. And, just for fun, I informed her I had already called the local press to tell them the story. Of course, this caused her to panic. She began imploring me to dump the whole affair, offering an amicable divorce with alimony payments. But all I wanted was for her to pack her bags and leave our house as soon as possible. I informed my ex that I wanted her to leave and remove her name from the deed of our love shack. I also wanted 50/50 custody of the children and a peaceful divorce. She pondered for a moment before saying absolutely. While still groveling on the floor, my ex begged me to grant her a week to leave the house. She said she had no other options because all of her friends were married and her parents were giving her the cold shoulder. I suggested she remain in an extended stay hotel until the apartment I had already rented was ready for her to take over. And this is exactly what happened. 2 days later, she was out of my hair and moved on. We finalized the divorce a few weeks later, and I received custody of the children and the house. It was definitely a little bit of a knock for her because she makes more money than I do. But well, it is life. Now that everything is in order, I'm focusing on getting back in shape and avoiding alcohol. And as far as dating goes, I'm not in any hurry to get back into the game.